Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas. This episode is also brought to you by Peghead Nation, the home of roots music instruction. If you want to improve your playing, join me and thousands of other pickers getting better every day at pegheadnation.com. Hi, this is Matt, and you're listening to Bluegrass Jam Along, the podcast for anyone and everyone who loves bluegrass. Hey everybody, welcome back to Bluegrass Jam Along. This is your Bluegrass Briefing for Monday, 24th of February 2025. And as always, we start with a little bit of a recap of podcast news. If you missed it last week, I put out a really interesting conversation with Jake Workman. He recently left Ricky Skaggs' band Kentucky Thunder after 9 years with them. And we had a really cool chat about his journey with Ricky, the time he spent there, what he learned, how he got the gig, all sorts of really cool stuff. Really enjoyed that one. Jake's fantastic, as I'm sure you all know. Go and check that out if you missed it. Also, and I'll stick a link to this in the show notes, I was a guest this weekend on Daniel Patrick's Mandolins and Beer podcast. And that was really fun, just to be on the other side of the interviewing for a change. And we chatted about all sorts of stuff, how Bluegrass Jam Along started, how I got into bluegrass in the first place, all sorts of bits and pieces. So if you're interested in a bit of the backstory to this podcast, go and have a listen to Daniel's. I will stick a link in the show notes and you can check that one out. It was a lot of fun. I really like Daniel. We've met a couple of times at IBMA. We've chatted a lot. He's a really interesting guy. So do check that one out as well. And if you missed it, just a reminder, there's a new thread of shorter episodes on the podcast called Bite Size, and they're just little chunks of some of the episodes that have got a little bit lost in the back catalogue. And the first one is a really fun chat with Jack Lawrence about a D18 that Doc Watson gave him. So go and dig that one out as well. That's all on the podcast. Got some really cool bits coming up over the next couple of weeks. I'll fill you in on those a little bit more next week. Recording an interview tonight, so if that all goes well, it'll be out this week. But yeah, tend not to like to announce things until they're recorded, so I will let you know about that one. But it's a really fun one, so yeah, stick around and check that out when it comes out. But that is it for podcast news. Let's move on to Church Street News, which is the news and announcements. And the first bit of news is that Rhiannon Giddens has a night coming up at the Hollywood Bowl called American Tunes, which is on the 18th of June. And it's basically a journey through the evolution of folk music, from old-time string band traditions to the rise of bluegrass, folk revival and beyond. And it sort of, is an evening that shows how folk roots bluegrass music have shaped music in America, and yeah, just a bit of a celebration of that, really. And it's led by Rhiannon Giddens, but includes people like Dirk Powell, Jason Cypher, Amelia Powell, Layla McCalla, Amethyst Kia, Steve Martin, Alison Brown, Ed Helms. Looks like a really interesting night. I will stick a link in the show notes. Go and have a look and get your tickets for that. But that sounds really cool. Rhiannon Giddens, American Tunes at the Hollywood Bowl. And the other thing is that Delfest have been announcing their lineup. Delfest happens May 22nd to 25th, Cumberland in Maryland. Del McCoury will be playing, of course, as you would expect, but also the Wood Brothers, Sister Sadie, Sierra Farrell, Leftover Salmon, Dan Tominski, Larkin Poe, Larry Sparks, like really wide range of really cool stuff there, and loads more than that. There's not really time to list all of it, but I will stick a link in the show notes to the Delfest lineup, and you can go and have a look and see what is on this year. So the Rhiannon Giddens American Tunes night at the Hollywood Bowl and the Delfest lineup are the main two news stories this week. Let's move on to The Grass is New. And there's two new bits for you this week. The first is banjo player Max Wareham. I mentioned him on the podcast a couple of weeks ago because he had a single out. The full record is out now, called Daggomit, and it is produced by Peter Rowan, includes Chris Eldridge and David Greer on guitar, Laura Orshaw on fiddle, Chris Henry on mandolin, Mike Bubb on bass. I'm really looking forward to listening to the whole thing. I enjoyed the single and I'm keen to hear the rest of the record. Max is also on tour, including a couple of festivals. He's playing Millfest, I think with Peter Rowan on that one, and he's playing Green Mountain as well. So check out his website. I'll stick a link in the show notes to that. You can go and have a look. And also there's another single from Sierra Hull's Tiptoe High Wire record, which is due in a couple of weeks. And this one is an ode to her grandmother, which is called Spitfire. Brilliant song, really enjoyed it. All the stuff coming off this new record sounds great. Very much looking forward to hearing the full album. So that's out now, Sierra Hull's Spitfire. There's a video for it as well. I'll stick a link in the show notes. You can go and watch that. And Sierra has loads of tour dates too, so go and check out her website and see where she's going to be playing near you. Her current band is fantastic. They're so good. Go and see them. So yeah, that's Max Wareham's album and Sierra Hull's new single Spitfire, both out this week. Stuff from both of those on the Grass is Mostly New playlist, which just collects together new releases throughout the year. Building a nice little list of stuff on there. Go check that out too. There's a link in the show notes. That is it for The Grass is New. And the next bit is Scroll On Buddy, and that's just some stuff that I've spotted I thought you might be interested in on various social media platforms. And the first one is last week's guest on the podcast, Jake Workman, has a new video up on the Collings website of him playing one of the new Collings Hill Country guitars. And it's his tune Northern Shore. Really cool. I really enjoy these kind of videos. Basically showcase for the guitars, but just great to hear Jake up close and recorded beautifully, and just watch that. So go and check that out. Link in the show notes for that as well. Also, another guitar related thing, Atkin Guitars. Alistair was on the podcast last year, if you remember. Fascinating guy. They build amazing guitars over here in the UK. Really interesting. And they've got a comparison video up of a couple of their dreadnoughts. D37, which is a sort of the kind of pre-war inspired dreadnought you would expect, but also their Atkin White Rice model, which is sort of not entirely based on, but very much inspired by the D28 that Clarence White had, that Tony Rice got after him and played on all those classic records. And yeah, just fun. If you don't know Atkin guitars, go and watch this and get a sense of what they do. If you do and you're really interested to hear the White Rice model, I played one over at IBMA in September. It's always hard to get a sense of a guitar in a busy sort of, trade show environment, but I mean, it felt like a great guitar, and I'd like to get my hands on one in a quiet room and spend some time with it. But check that out. That's the Collings Hill Country video, Jake Workman's Northern Shore, but also the Atkin White Rice and D37 comparison video on YouTube. I will stick links in the show notes. Go and watch those. And that just remains for me to share what's been in my ears this week. And I've been digging back and listening to the J.D. Crowe 0044 record quite a bit, because it turns 50 this year, and that is just one of those classic records. And I feel like I don't know it as well as I ought to. I've listened to it a fair amount, but I feel like I need to spend a bit more time with it. So I've been spending the last week listening to that, and it sounds so kind of fresh, so exciting, so full of energy. It's such a good record. And dug out one of the bonus tracks. There's 11 tracks on the CD. There's another track that was recorded along with it all, but didn't go on the CD for some reason, and appeared later on a vinyl reissue and a Cracker Barrel version of the CD. So that's just been fun, listening through that. Just sort of, getting reacquainted with that record a bit. But that is it for this week. As always, all the stuff you need is on the website, bluegrassjamalong.com. Links to all the interviews. You can sort them by topic. You can, dig through, and it's much easier to find stuff than it can be on the podcast platform sometimes. So, go and have a look there. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can do that. If you want to subscribe and pay a small monthly fee through Apple Podcasts, then that helps support the podcast, and I'd love it if you do that. But otherwise, review it, rate it, and share it with people you think might like it. All the usual stuff. That is it for this week. I will see you next time. Have a great week, and happy picking.
Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collings Guitars and Mandolins, making some of the finest guitars and mandolins in the world since the 1970s. Visit collingsguitars.com and find out why.